So ever since my family took me on my first cruise when I was only 10 years old, I've been absolutely obsessed with all things cruise ships. Honestly, just ask my friends in elementary school. I was a little, let's just say, over the top. I've just been amazed by all the things that the ship's designers and engineers can put on a moving, floating vessel. Honestly, these things have like everything you could ever imagine. Every amenity, every activity, anything you might need to survive, an apocalypse, maybe? I mean, it makes sense why a lot of retirees today are choosing to live on cruise ships full time rather than in traditional retirement homes. For the last 15 years, it's been an absolute dream of mine to sail aboard one of Royal Caribbean International's Oasis Class ships, the largest class of cruise ships in the world. These ships have it all. Rock climbing walls, ice skating rinks, surfing simulators, shopping malls, you name it, everything. But in the last 15 years, I've never had a chance to sail aboard one of these ships. That is, until last month when I got the opportunity to sail aboard Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas to the Mediterranean. However, I was a bit hesitant to go on board just because I'd been hyping up this type of ship in my mind for so long. I had no idea if it would actually live up to the expectations I had for it. This would be a great opportunity to find out, right? As soon as I stepped aboard the ship in Barcelona, I was greeted by the friendly and attentive crew who made me feel right at home, just as I was used to on any other cruise I've sailed on. The ship's grandeur and state-of-the-art facilities immediately left me lost for words. I could hardly wait to explore every inch of this enormous superliner. One of my favorite features on board was Central Park, an open-air gathering place that housed over 20,000 live plants and trees. I especially loved Central Park at night, when they placed candles out on the tables and had a live band playing acoustic and bossa nova music. This section of the ship most definitely lived up to its hype, and I especially appreciated my Central Park View balcony stateroom, which allowed me to escape into the magic of the park whenever I was in my room. The boardwalk and Royal Promenade neighborhoods were also very exciting, but they did appear to be a little bit smaller in real life than compared to how they appeared online in photos and videos. However, nonetheless, they were still very impressive. While the boardwalk was home to some venues on the ship that weren't particularly my favorite, such as the sports bar or the kids arcade, what was super fun for me was dancing the night away outside in the famous silent disco party. The Royal Promenade is also known as the heartbeat of the ship, as this is where the majority of the ship's live music venues and bars are located. This is also where they host most of the themed night parties, such as the 70s party, the 80s party, as well as the welcome aboard balloon drop, which was a first for me. By far, the most exhilarating part of the onboard experience was the variety of entertainment. There was so much to see on board, and everything lived up to Royal Caribbean's very famous reputation for its onboard entertainment. In the main Royal Theatre, we experienced the Broadway production of Hairspray, a show I once had the pleasure of performing in myself, and an original production called Flight, Dare to Dream, where an actual airplane flew over the audience. Another first for me on board a moving ship. Both of these shows were accompanied by a live orchestra playing the music on board. I was very impressed. Another spectacular first for me on board a cruise ship was Studio B, the ship's onboard ice skating rink. During our cruise, we enjoyed 2 separate ice skating shows, one of which even boasted a drone sequence at the beginning. Sadly, due to technical difficulties, we were unable to see one of the shows in its entirety. Guests themselves can ice skate in Studio B during certain times of the day. However, being in Europe, I decided to stay outside in the sunshine. The ice in Studio B has a retractable cover, so different events are also held here throughout the cruise. Towards the end of the cruise, the entertainment team hosted a fantastic nightclub experience called Red, which lasted until the early hours of the morning. However, by far the ship's coolest entertainment venue was the Aqua Theater, which is located at the very aft of the ship, connected to the boardwalk. On our very first night, we watched an incredible show called Hero, which boasted high divers, acrobats, water dancers, aerialists, tightrope walkers, and even the largest disco ball at sea. I would go on the ship again just to see this show. The fact that we watched world-class athletes dive and jump and do acrobats and all these things on a moving ship in the middle of the ocean was quite mind-boggling. The ship had many spaces to relax and unwind in, including the top pool deck, which never actually felt that busy. My favorite was the wade-in beach pool area. The adults-only solarium boasted cantilevered hot tubs that overlooked the ocean and a relaxing atmosphere that was partially covered from the elements. There was also a massive spa and fitness center on board, but the only time we actually saw this space was on the first day when we were touring the ship, because the rest of the time we were actually too busy exercising our stomach muscles, if you know what I mean. I did try the onboard zipline and surf simulators, so maybe that counts as exercise. Despite having a capacity of over 6,000 guests and 2,000 crew, Symphony of the Seas never actually felt that busy or crowded. I took another cruise earlier in the year on one of Royal Caribbean's smaller, but still mega ships, Odyssey of the Seas, and in my opinion, that ship felt a bit more crowded in areas like the pool deck and the buffet. I'll be sharing my experience aboard that ship in a future video. Even with the ship's major size and width, my commute times to the different public areas and venues of the ship didn't actually feel that much longer than on other cruise ships that I've been on, even the smaller ones. Embarking and disembarking the ship at each port was super easy, super quick, super organized, and when we were on the ship, we never really had difficulty finding tables at bars or restaurants and rarely had to wait in line. On embarkation day in Barcelona, if we hadn't stopped in the duty-free shop at the port, I'm pretty sure that we could have been from the curbside at our taxi to the ship in our room in about 6 minutes, so that was pretty impressive. Overall, my experience on board was unforgettable and definitely lived up to my expectations. I do think if I would have sailed 10 years earlier when I was that much younger, I probably would have been even more blown away, but I did still leave pinching myself thinking, did I really just experience all of that on a moving cruise ship? Before leaving on my trip, I had heard some mixed reviews about the quality of Symphony's food in the last few months, particularly when it came to the buffet. However, I am pleased to report that all of the food was of good quality, very tasty, nice and warm, and served in a timely manner. We ate in the included 3-story main dining room for dinner each night, which was absolutely massive. But despite the sheer size and number of people dining each night, the service was still super quick and efficient. We were out of there each night in about 60 minutes. And one night, if I wouldn't have ordered coffee with my dessert, I'm pretty sure we would have been done dinner in about 45 minutes. The menu selection was a bit smaller than previous Royal Caribbean sailings I've been on. However, in my opinion, there was still a good variety of selections for people of different taste buds and palates and dietary restrictions. So overall, I was very pleased with my main dining room experience. While I was on board, I was in cruise ship paradise. However, as with most cruise addicts that I know, it's hard not to compare one cruise experience with that of a past cruise experience. While I was on board Symphony of the Seas, for me, that was Celebrity Cruises, Royal Caribbean's more premium sister brand and the company that I've traveled with the most. Stay tuned for a future video where I compare my experiences both on Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, and I share who I think would enjoy a cruise on each of the two lines. I'll see you next time.